Hi, welcome to Just That Film. I'm Lilly.
And I'm Daddy.
Daddy.
Oh.
And this one...
No, we're starting again.
Alright, in this episode, we're talking about La Land. And this episode, we are talking about La Land. Written and directed by Damien Chazelle, who also made Whiplash and Babylon. It stars Ryan Gosling, who's in Blue Valentine and Drive and the new Ghost Rider, and Emma Stone. They've actually done 3 films together. Easy. She was also an Easy A in Poor Things. But the 3 films they done together.
Crazy Stupid Love.
And
I don't know.
Trading
Places.
No, Gangster Squad. Why did you say Trading Places? Also got J.K. Simmons, who's in Spider-Man, and who's also in Whiplash.
Also in Juno.
Yeah, I know. Everyone knows that. Bruce Davidson, who plays Mia's dad. He was Senator Kelly in the X-Men films. I thought that'd impress you. It did. And you've also got Tom Everett Scott.
Ooh.
Who plays her boyfriend at the end. Or is it her
Husband.
husband? Her husband at the end, yeah. Have you ever seen That Thing You Do, have you?
No, I haven't seen that.
He's like the lead in That Thing You Do. He's the drummer in That Thing You Do. He's also in American Werewolf in Paris, but that's rubbish. Well, in That Thing You Do, he married Faye Doolan, and in this he's married to Mia Doolan. He's very much into jazz in that. There's a bit where he gets in the cab and he says, take him to the best jazz club in town, and him having this small little part in it going, oh, let's go into this little jazz club thing, you know. But again, if you haven't seen That Thing You Do, then you wouldn't know what that means. Nothing. You've also got John Legend, who is known for doing that terrible version of Baby It's Cold Outside.
It's not that bad.
It's a bit like, oh yeah, there's a cab outside for you, baby.
It's not the end of the world.
Oh yeah, I apologise for all the movies. So La Land, you've studied this a lot lately, haven't you?
Yes, I have. It's part of my A-levels.
Yeah. So what do you think of La Land? Well, tell us the story.
You want me to tell you the story of La Land?
No, tell me the story of Goonies.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me the story of La Land.
It's Mia, who's an aspiring actress.
And you are. And Seb.
And Seb, who is a jazz musician who aspires to own his own jazz club and restore jazz within American society, I guess, or just within society. And the two of them explore their passions together and try and achieve their dreams. And there'll be spoilers for La Land.
And there'll be spoilers for La Land, yeah. But ultimately, their relationship is doomed, isn't it? Because, they're still happy if they reflect fondly on their time they spent together. But a bit at the end is like, yeah, they've moved on. They have that little moment.
Well, I mean, there's some interesting trivia in the film. Once the two of them become less happy and in their lives the amount of musical numbers actually drastically change to become non-existent. Because if you realise at the start of the film there's all the singing between the pair of them and this whole romantic idea, but by the time it's the end of the film there's only really one other musical number, and that's when Mia is auditioning for that part. Otherwise they're as non-existent because they've lost happiness in their lives. And
he loves his whip pans as well, Damien Chazelle.
Yeah, I think it looks good for the film.
No, it works, and there's nothing wrong with a director having his own style. It's like, I don't know if I haven't really made enough to sort of have my own style, but I know that I enjoy overhead shots, for example. I enjoy symmetry and overhead shots. Like in Horrible Love, I was obsessed with getting this overhead crane shot, and the cinematographer weren't sure exactly what I wanted. He kept doing it in an angle, and I said, no, I want it exactly precisely over his head, you know. I want it so it follows Rosie and Rachel's character as they go down around Kurt in the middle of the screen, zooming close to him, yeah. You know, and that's the kind of thing that appealed to me as a filmmaker. I like the symmetry.
So you appreciate Wes Anderson stuff, or?
Yeah, no, I do. I like Wes Anderson. I would not try and emulate him. I wouldn't try and do it as much as him. He does like 110% symmetry. He's good. I like it. I like his style, but I wouldn't do as much as that.
Okay.
And I like how, like you're saying, it starts off, very musical. It also starts off very colourful as well.
That's inspired by the 50s Technicolor, and then towards the end when they have their argument in the kitchen, it's by candlelight and it looks almost exactly like a horror film. I mean, something I picked up recently when I rewatched the film recently was the scene is covered in a lot of green. Like, there's a lot of lighting is very green within that scene. So if you're going for like an obvious thing is the jealousy between the couple, because obviously where Seb is achieving his dreams at this point, but Mia's potentially seeing Seb's success as damaging him because he's not staying true to his original dream. But then at the same time, you can see from Seb's perspective, he's being successful as a way of providing for Mia, but also like it seems like she doesn't want to be successful, you know?
Yeah, it must be frustrated as well after these years of sticking to your guns, going, no, I want to be true. You know, it's not about fame, it's not about success, but it's obviously got to a bit where he has to compromise.
He's not John Legend in the film.
Yeah, like where he works John. Yeah, he's not John Legend, but like where he ends up sort of. He also with the candlelight bit, you got the smoke alarm, and it's like an alarm bell. It's like the end of their relationship. You got going off. You know, this. It's like there's a realization that something has gone wrong. I mean, really, looking back over it again, they do seem to end their relationship quite easily. But then it's only a 2-hour film, so, I mean, other films might have, in reality, often like people would have a big argument.
But that scene's not the end of their relationship.
No, but it's sort of like
Well, I guess, but it's warning bells, but it's not the end. And you can argue that's why it's not necessarily as drawn out. If you think about when their relationship does end, when he doesn't attend a big performance on opening night, that is more of the all guns blazing argument, because she's just fed up. Because even though he doesn't say anything, that's kind of the point, because obviously he's not been there for her or her dream when she's obviously been trying to support his.
Yeah. I've got written down here, I can't remember, you might jog my memory. Ephraim, one point where
he says Ephraim when he's saying not to appeal to the mainstream Hollywood ideas, and to instead to continue to do the auditions to create her own play. Is that what you're on about? Yeah.
That might be it, yeah. Because I just put Ephraim and I agree, but I can't remember what it is.
Probably because of your own experience with like filmmaking, The Blacklist and stuff, where you're trying to.
Yeah, and it's also sort of like trying not to sell out as well.
Yeah. But I mean, you can't really be successful, in my opinion at least. If you want to be successful in specific industries, you've got to kind of sell to the mainstream, even if that's.
You've got to compromise a bit. You need to sort of, especially when it comes to filmmaking. I think music's different. Music, you can have your own voice, put it out there, hardly have anyone else tamper with it, and see if there's a market for it.
Yeah. But
with film, there's very few people can make a film entirely on their own and put it out there, because if you're wanting to put it out there, you need backers. You need people who's going to invest. And if they're going to invest, they want to. It needs to be a product they believe in, and there's very few things where people like. If you told me a story right now, I might go, "Oh, I love that story, yeah." But could you change this bit? I think you could change that, and that's all Hollywood is other people sticking their fingers in. And he said it's a compromised art form.
The idea that there's like one true person that is responsible for the film as a whole is kind of like the idea of the auteur, which is like the theory that was popularized by French directors like Francois Truffaut and stuff like that, where they all talk about the idea that the auteur is the sole creator or the visionary for the film. But then the idea of that is also you can't really have that if you're looking at film as a whole, because you can't do every single job successfully, at least.
No, exactly. But even with, I'll tell you like one who almost done everything by himself, and that would be that Tommy Wiseau with The Room, which is a notoriously bad film.
Right, yeah.
And some people say the reason it's such a bad film is because he wanted to write, direct, star,
Well, yeah.
produce, do absolutely everything in the film. And I know it's a very popular film. It's popular because it's so bad. But you can't, in any stretch of imagination, think that he's a great filmmaker.
No, of course not. But my point, what I'm trying to get at, is where you look at the idea of like an industry, you've got to compromise. That is true, obviously. Like I know we weren't disagreeing on that, but the idea that there's a director out there that can have his entire idea in one film is impossible. Even like
or anyone.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example. I guess Tarantino, obviously with Pulp Fiction, even though that is one of his most popular works, or is attributed to him, the original writings were absolute nonsense. It was the writing team that pieced it together, the film, and created something that was watchable.
Yeah. Well, this is it. With Pulp Fiction, I would say, like, the direction and the writing is probably 70% Tarantino. And I would still maintain Pulp Fiction's Tarantino's best film.
Yeah.
It's 100%, you know, I'm not taking any away from Tarantino. I think it's brilliant, and I think he's brilliant with Pulp Fiction. It's a film I absolutely loved when I was a kid. It came out, I was the right audience for it. I was a teenage boy who thought, wow, this is cinema. Cinema can be exciting and violent and cool and all these things and funny. It's his films after that, when he then becomes more of a position of power, he becomes a household name. Now everyone knows his name. You can just call him by his surname. That he gets too much power, too much leverage. He now makes 2.5, 3 hour long films, and you think what you really need is an equally powerful producer to reel him in and say, Quentin, I love all this stuff, but that is rubbish. Cut that scene out, cut that out. And he will have that. He has it to a degree with some producers, but they will tiptoe around him, because at the end of the day, he's the one who could turn around and say, listen, it's my way or the highway. Yeah, and I personally think that's something you've got to avoid. If you're going to make something and you don't want anyone else involved, you're going to have to make a lot of compromise elsewhere. Like maybe in the budget, you have to go, right, you know what? If you don't like it, don't invest. I'll put my own money into it. And that's where you get the danger of things like something like Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
Well, let's go back towards La La Land.
La La Land, which had 6 Oscar wins. Do you know?
There's the funny clip from the Oscars, obviously with the La La Land cast assuming that they've won the Oscar because of Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway.
So momentarily it had 7 Oscars.
Yeah.
It had 7 Oscars for about 2 minutes. But 6 Oscars, what were they for? Now you already know that they didn't win Best Film, so try and guess.
I honestly can't remember. I want to say Best Actress was in there.
Yes. Yeah, Emma Stone won Best Actress.
Yeah. I don't remember if Ryan Gosling got Best Actor, but I don't think he did.
No, he hasn't won an Oscar yet.
Damien Chazelle, did he get Best Actor?
He did. Youngest at 32 years and 38 days. He's the youngest person to ever win Best Director. So obviously it's a record I can't beat anymore, being 11 years older than him.
What? No!
He also won Oscars for cinematography, music written for film, original song, City of Stars, and production design, which I totally get. Production design, I think, is amazing for this, and because it's so music driven, there's not many musicals have dropped down in, you know, popularity. Well, if you go back 100 years or like 80 years, musicals was one of the most popular genres in the world.
Yeah.
Lemon westerns, and now musicals and westerns you hardly see. You know, you see a couple a year and that's it, and it's just the flow of things. So, but I wouldn't take away City of Stars as a good song.
Returning to the idea of the musical, and within this film at least, you can obviously look at the inspiration to a lot of the scenes within the film, including the Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which after watching that, despite the fact not necessarily my favourite film or cup of tea, I really did like the story, but the way that it's executed is not the way I would do it, but I appreciate it, which was the entire film is just one long musical.
Right.
And it, like, she's just singing. I think if I'm getting the film right, she's just singing the entire time, and everyone sings the entire film. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. Also, it's all in French as well. The plot itself is incredibly similar to that of La La Land, where since I've watched the film, so if I'm wrong then I apologise, but he falls in love with a man, and she's pregnant, but he has to go off to war. He has to leave, and they obviously find someone else because she has to find someone to look after the baby. But then obviously they reconcile much later on, not properly, but they meet again similar to that of La La Land, where it's not necessarily a full conversation, but they just reunite, and they get the idea that it would have been better if there's another timeline where they would have been together. You can also look at the colours in that film. You can see a lot of that in La La Land.
And they also said we'll always have Paris, Casablanca.
There's a lot of references to Casablanca, obviously, in this film.
It's a huge influence, isn't it? Why did you cry?
Why did I cry?
Yeah, last time you watched it, you cried.
Because I find it sad. I mean, I do understand why they had to break up, obviously, but it's still upsetting because you can kind of imagine what it could have been like for them, especially with that sequence.
Yeah, I don't know why things like that. I'm sort of, I don't know. This is where I'm more cynical, or whatever. I'm just more realistic about it, or whatever. I don't get so upset now about things like that, broken relationships failing, because I, as like a single man in his 40s, would say, okay, well, I'm content with my life, I enjoy my life, I enjoy my freedom, but maybe I'm a product of modern society where that's seen as the norm. Whereas relationships used to seem like the be all and end all. Like almost every film, it was like, oh, okay, well, that's obviously going to be the person who they romantically get attached to.
I was going to say, there's this thing that I picked up on when I last watched it, which is the kind of fantasy-like sequence. It's got the instrumental, City of Stars playing, and it's looking at how their life could have been if it had been
near the end.
Happy,
Yeah. Where he's playing in the jazz club and she sort of drifts off.
Yeah. It's the images of if they'd had a daughter, which I thought was interesting because obviously with her actual husband, they had a son. In that dream sequence, her and Seb, had a daughter, which I think is quite interesting if you think about it, in the sense that she allowed Seb to have his dream, and even though she's still having her dream, she didn't really get what she wanted out of the relationship more than Seb. Whereas if they'd had a daughter, that's more symbolic of him having to give up his dream to follow her around.
Really?
Let me reword it. So think about it this way. The sequence plays out, yes, she's a successful actress with a husband and a daughter. And that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
To a degree. And then obviously they go to Seb's jazz club. He's achieved what he's wanted. But for Mia, what she really wanted was Seb. And so in this dream sequence, when it plays out, she has Seb follow her around everywhere. He basically devoted every bit of attention to her. He didn't go along with Jonah Lodgen's character. If you remember in the sequence, he pushes him away. Then he follows her to Paris when she gets the successful audition, and they stay together. But then when it gets to the end sequence, when he's driving the car like her husband was, they turn up at the jazz club. You realise that could have never happened if he had devoted himself to her. It kind of proves the idea that the most successful for them to achieve their careers would have been that they had to break up because they couldn't sacrifice their dream for the other. Hence the idea of her having a daughter is the idea that he would have had to sacrifice his dream for her. And her dream is kind of symbolic through her daughter. It doesn't really make sense. I'm trying to find the right way to word it, but that's the best I could do.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sort of, yeah. So the daughter is like a representation of a mini version of her in a way.
Oh, yeah.
They get to go down her path.
And she achieves her dream, and that's symbolic through having a daughter. Whereas the son idea is more of that of him getting his what he wanted. She never really does. Yes, she becomes a successful actress, but what she always really wanted was Seb.
Right, yeah. So really, that dream sequence then is more of like a selfish fantasy up to a point, because it's her thinking, oh, it was so great if we'd stayed together and he'd stayed with me for my journey, and then it's only like you said at the very end, she probably realises, but he wouldn't have got to do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't for the best that it was for the best that they split up. Just a little thing, when they were sort of smiling at each other at the end, I would have preferred personally, because I thought it was a bit more bittersweet if she didn't look at him, like, or if they looked away, like they sort of smiled, but they never actually caught eye contact, so you didn't actually know. It's almost like they don't know because they have this moment there where they're sort of like smiling, and it could have been us kind of thing. I don't think that was necessary because I don't think her life. Yeah. I mean, not even aside from the career thing, her life wouldn't necessarily have been better if she'd been with Seb. You know, her husband that she's with now is probably a lot better for her than Seb would have been. And I don't know if it's also where I look at Blue Valentine, which was Ryan Gosling, and Michelle Williams, which obviously, what I love about that film, it shows a difference between the beginning and the ending of a relationship. At the beginning of the relationship, they're all loved up, and she's sort of dancing while he's playing the ukulele and stuff like that. It's more based in realism, obviously, than La La Land, and you can see it's their relationship and how well they get on, their chemistry. It's reminiscent of their chemistry in La La Land. But when you see the end of the relationship, where they're arguing over every little thing, and he's let himself go, and he's getting jealous of her, he's got bald and fat, and they've got a kid together, and it's just nothing they can do to sort of stay together. It's just bitter and angry. I'm not saying all relationships are going to end like that, but I think the parallels between the Ryan Gosling collection, but the parallels between them films make me think that the right decision was met in the end. Not just for their careers, but possibly for their relationship as well.
I do see where you're coming from with that, but then at the same time, you can think about the fact that if they hadn't have broken up when they did, and they'd broken up later in life, there's this idea that would have still been good with them to an extent. I mean, if you then look at films like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, obviously by near the end of the memory, where he's wiped his memory of Clementine, he realises how much he appreciated the time he did have with her, and how much he loved her, even with everything that happened, and what they didn't agree with. And that's also kind of obviously in films of 500 Days of Summer, even though there's slightly different, because he obviously realises that she wasn't good for him, but you need to appreciate the time that you did have with that person, which is really important, especially within this film, because I think without each other, they probably would not have done things that achieved their dreams. For example, by Mia initially encouraging Seb to join the band, or suggesting it, even though Seb just took the initiative and joined it, that allowed him to have the funds to create the jazz club, which is important. And him saying for her to create that play, even though he wasn't there, that director was. The casting director was there. And so obviously saw the potential in Mia, and that's what led to her success. Makes it important to realise that they were good for each other in the
they were essential for each other in that respect, because if it weren't for him, she wouldn't have known, because he ran to look for her and say, someone saw your play and he wants to give you your shot, and that was her big shot, because without that opportunity, it's every likelihood she would have gone for the rest of her life not really making it. In fact, she had given up at that point.
She was going to return to law school, which
it would, things happen in life, and it's not necessarily the right or wrong path. It's like everything everywhere all at once. It shows you different possibilities, things that could have happened. So what do you say about this film in your exams?
In my exams, the thing that I kind of got at in my exam recently was the white saviour narrative, which, even though obviously you can admire Seb's passion within the film for jazz, if you look at it from a cynical point of view and think about the idea that he's trying to save jazz when it wasn't his to save to begin with, If you look more at John Legend's character, who's trying to go, look man, we've got to make it accessible for people nowadays, because it isn't what everybody wants now. But Seb's still like, no, I've got to keep it pure and stuff like that. It's very, that's kind of what I mean by the white saviour narrative, because it's this idea that he wants jazz to stay what he believes the ideal version of jazz is, when in reality, jazz was always meant to be a black medium.
See, I don't agree with that. Because the reason, I understand the white saviour thing, but when it comes to things like that, for me personally, I think jazz owes, and all forms of music, owes a lot to all different people, all different races. I don't think music has colour, It's like, for example, the rap industry, right? I'm not a big fan of rap, but rap is huge. And why is it huge? It's huge because white people buy it. It's not huge because black people buy it. It's huge because white people buy it, because there are more white people in America and Britain than there are black people. And it's the same thing to an extent with jazz, because if it wasn't for white people liking it or wanting to hear it, it would not have got out of the slums or the ghettos or anything like that. So it's too easy to say this ain't for you. And I don't like that. I don't like when people say, "Oh, it's cultural appropriation." No, it's. I think everything is for everyone. And as soon as you start gatekeeping things, as soon as you start saying this is jazz is for us, for black people, no, it's not fair. I love jazz, you know.
And I think you're missing my point. My point is the fact that, with Seb at least, he is completely ignoring the fact that it is initially meant to be more. I'm trying to explain it away to make it sound as if Seb can't have it, but he obviously can have it, but he has to listen to the black voices.
Yeah, but this is the thing. I think he is right and John Legend is wrong, personally. John Legend, his character, sorry, I can't remember his character's name. His character is all about the pursuit of fame and fortune. And it's the compromise is saying, look, man, he recognises Ryan Gosling as a talented musician and he wants him on his staff, not because he's doing him a favour, he's doing it because he knows this cat knows his stuff. He wants him on here. And what I like is Ryan Gosling's character, regardless of race, is saying, no, this is what's important. And if you swap the two actors around, it would have been the same message anyway. But if anything, it would have been one of those things where it's more obvious. People would have gone, oh, look at the white people just trying to make money out of the jazz by watering it down and making it more accessible to the masses.
I get what you're saying, but my point stands that he isn't allowing jazz to flourish. He's trying to keep it in the past, you know, and keeping it in its roots. But then everything adapts over time. You can't stay the same. You have to allow things to change. Otherwise, you can't create new things. Because if everything stayed the same, we'd be living in the dark ages. We wouldn't have technology and electronics. I know that's not the same concept, but I'm saying that if you're looking at how pop is back in the 80s to pop now, you might disagree with how it is nowadays, but people who liked pop in the 80s would have disagreed with it in comparison to how it was in the 60s or 70s. My point is that music has to adapt in order to survive, and that is what John Legend's character is trying to sell Seb throughout the film. I get that Seb obviously still sticks to his dream and achieves his own jazz club where he performs his own music, but by being part of John Legend's band, he's able to further jazz. If he hadn't, if you don't allow jazz to adapt or to fuse, and you don't allow it to be in things that are more accessible to the mainstream, you're not going to have that success, and jazz would fizzle out in a way, or like it wouldn't flourish the way it has or does in this film.
Yeah, but I disagree, because I don't think success is what people should measure themselves by. I'd rather be true to myself and not successful than having to compromise and be successful. And that's the dilemma that Seb is faced with, and you can see it on his face. You can see him thinking, this is even when he's at the party, and at the pool party, and she asks him to play Iran, and you see him, he's thinking, I have to do this because I've got to make money. But it's not true to him. It's not what he wants to do. And it's like, he has this dream about the little club just for him, and he gets there in the end. And the thing is about the music, I understand what you're saying regarding other things in industry. Things need to develop, cinema needs to develop, everything. And music does need to develop. However, I personally feel that popular music peaked in the 70s, because at that point, you had session musicians who had produced these big studios, where everyone had to have their talent on point. They've been working on things since they were children. They've been working hard. Like someone, like Earth, Wind and Fire playing a saxophone. He's been doing that for 20 years. Similar to the character in Whiplash, someone who's had to get to that peak musician standard. However, music nowadays, you don't need to do that. You can just press a button, record a little bit. That drum bit's out of time, that's fine, I'll just move it and stuff. That's great, because it makes it easier for people like me trying to make music. But the fact is, back then you had to earn it. And this has been proven as well, that modern music use less chords, less tempo changes, less everything. It's been so watered down because the studios going, no, we like what you're doing, but we want you to sound more like Ed Sheeran because he's successful. So take that out and do more and sing songs about this. And people do it because they care about success.
I do understand where you're coming from, but then by saying that, you're ignoring the fact that there is a lot of mainstream artists that do remain true. I don't want to, for example, Billie Eilish, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a Billie Eilish listener myself massively, but I do appreciate the fact that Billie Eilish does not use any autotune in her vocals, and she will re-record if it's not perfect, if it's not what she wants, right? And she's a mainstream artist. You can see how popular she is, but...
Yeah, but that was a given. That's what I'm saying. Back in the 70s, that was a given.
Yeah,
Everyone...
I don't say it was a given back then.
You know, no one used autotune unless they was using it to making like in the 10cc song, I'm Not In Love, where they layer upon layer upon layer of it. They do it till they get the sound right. Listen, I agree, and I'm a different generation. It's all I'm saying is when I see La La Land, I'm on the exact same page as Seb, as in the fact that, okay, maybe it's wrong just to sort of sit in the past and think, oh, weren't it good in the old days of work? But, you know, it's each individual's taste. And I personally I'd rather go spend 50 quid to sit in Ronnie Scott's and listen to some jazz band I'm never going to hear again than 50 quid to go see Billie Eilish.
You've been putting a lot of your values into the character of Seb. I understand why, but at the same time, you're ignoring the fact that a lot of the time music and film and other things are still remaining true to what you want, because there's obviously going to still be remaining true to your idea of what perfect or what's a good way of doing music, but then you're also ignoring the fact that that's your opinion. That
of course I am, but my opinion's right.
No, it's not. You can have your opinion on things, but you can't oppose it onto other people, which is exactly what this film's kind of doing, because Mia wanted Seb to conform to what she wanted and her success. The same as Seb wanted Mia to conform to his success and to follow him around and be part of his success, because they are both being ignorant of the other's wants and needs. And so by being ignorant, you're not appreciating the fact that everyone wants to have their own input on the industry.
Yeah. But if you take out the desire for success, if you take out an audience and you go play whatever you want to play, are you going to still play what you think other people are going to like? No, you're going to play what you like. No, no one else is listening. I'm going to play what I want to play. It's like Mike. It's a scenario where Mike would be John Legend. He's saying, I like to appeal to as many people as possible. I think that's the best idea when you're making a film, is to appeal to as wide a demographic as possible. A film for everyone, so everyone can go look and go, I love that film. Well, I understand that, and there is merit to it. It's just me personally, I'm of the opinion that, no, I'd rather make a film that I love. And I don't care if no one else likes it. The rest of the world could hate it, go, what was that crap, and anything I do, whether it's podcast or music or film, it's just, I think I'm going to make something that I like. If no one else likes it, that's sad, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it because I was true to myself. But
I think the issue is that nobody makes things thinking that nobody else is ever going to see it, because it's innate in humans that you want to share your success and you want things that you've created to become something that's wildly accepted as a good thing. Otherwise, why would you do it in the first place? Because to say as if, for example, you and Ben have created this podcast as an outlet of your opinions on film, and you wouldn't have created it if you didn't want other people to listen to it, because otherwise you would just have those conversations in your living room. So everything is made so that everyone else can experience it, and it's why things exist. The light bulb exists, and that's wildly accepted and it's wildly used. Now, if, Thomas Edison kept it to himself and didn't let anyone else have it, then what was the point of making it if you weren't trying to innovate and create something new? And so you have to accept that sometimes things have to change in order for it to become something new.
Yeah, but I don't think people, that's a different thing, because I think creating a light bulb and thinking, oh, I'm going to add some rap music to this version of Baby It's Cold Outside, it's completely different. One is being like making something for the sake of being successful, for having money, whereas I think some things people make and they're just exceptionally proud and go, wow, this is something really good, and I hope other people get it, but they might not. And see, like with this podcast, it's a good example because we don't pick films, the obvious ones. You know, we've never done Lord of the Rings, we've never done Harry Potter, we ain't even really done any like Marvel films, and I love Marvel films, because that's just too obvious, it's too on the nose. Let's get mainstream, let's get more numbers. And yeah, we don't have as many listeners as many other podcasts, because some of our stuff's a bit niche, focusing on individual films like we have done today. But at least then we are being true to ourselves, and we can be honest when we're talking. So we avoid picking films that we don't like, because otherwise we're sitting there going, isn't that crap? Even though like there'll be people out there who love the film. Whereas if we concentrate on things that we do like, we know there's an audience for it somewhere.
But you know it's disheartening for you and Ben when your podcast isn't as successful as you'd want it to be, because you're thinking, oh, there's not been as many listeners this week. There's not been as many people watching it this week. If you truly thought that it was okay to create things without people perceiving it, then that wouldn't be an issue for either of you. But obviously you both care because you want people to see your opinions, and you want people to have an opinion on what you've done, because otherwise you wouldn't share it. So what I'm saying is, within the context of this film, John Legend's character adapting jazz in his band and becoming this fusion of different things, yeah, it's not exactly what Seb wants to be doing, but it's furthering his career, and you have to see the benefits of doing things that, yeah, maybe you don't want to do it in that moment, but it's worth it in the long run. Like, I mean, if I'm trying to get a job, and it's not really the kind of job I want to be doing, but I know that by doing it, it allows me to do other things, then that's a good thing. And so you have to kind of see it in that way, rather than seeing it as this ultimatum between remaining true to yourself and selling out, because I think that you can't be true to yourself without selling out, in a sense.
Well, I'll tell you another example. Like on, I go through TikTok sometimes, and you'll see someone pop up, and they'll come out and go, "I've just seen the new whatever movie," you know, and oh, it's amazing, and blah blah blah, and you think, really, the way they're sort of going over the top about it, and then when you give it a week to settle down when the film's released properly, and you see it's got really bad reviews, and you realise what this was. There was a small-time content creator who's been contacted and said, hey, you want free tickets to go see this film? Give us a review. And they put sort of gentle pressure on them to give it a positive review, because they see it got numbers. Me and Bennett even had this. We had someone contact us about a wrestler doing a movie. They weren't a wrestler I particularly know. Mike had heard of him. And I looked at it and I thought, but these films sound terrible. And I looked up on IMDb, and you could see it was one of those straight to DVD things. And I thought, but we ended up not doing it because I didn't want to sell out. I didn't want to go, yeah, this new film is amazing and blah 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 blah, you know.
Yeah, but
and maybe if I had done that, I might have more people listening to the podcast now. I might have reached a bigger audience, and I might actually be making money from it, which at the moment we're not. But I sleep better knowing I haven't done that, because I compromised with I was going to make a film back in 2010 maybe, Surefire Hit, I Love to Kill, and it was a couple of £1 million budget. It had a few actors attached, like Chris Noth, Jennifer Ellison, I think it was Jamie Winston. There was quite a few like sort of middle ground names, people attached to it, and we went to L Street, had this big read through, and I was thinking, this is fantastic. And I was compromising so much with that film. It's like every other week, can you write this scene for this person? Can you write for this person? Can you do this?
Yeah. And
in the end, I was almost dreading when the film comes out, because I thought, this is the worst script I've ever written, and it's going to be my calling card. And probably, in the end, it never got made. And it's probably a blessing.
Think about it this way. There are films like, I'm sure like Tarantino, like some of his like earlier stuff, he had to listen to the studio who were telling him to do certain things. Like, I mean, Reservoir Dogs, the studio had to rein him in a lot more, obviously, but it became a commercial hit. Obviously, now he would appreciate the film, but I can imagine him being in the same boat as you, dreading release, thinking, God, isn't what I originally wanted.
Yeah,
but it actually allowing him to then later on create these massive commercial hits. But what you would now say is Reservoir Dogs is one of his better films, and you've said this, whereas his later stuff like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you don't rate it, you don't like it.
Well, it's not that I don't like it. I need to watch it again, but I remember watching it and just thinking it was very indulgent, like self-indulgent.
But that's what I'm saying. As soon as you're given that freedom, you're able to be self-indulgent because they're like, oh, you'll create something good anyway. And chances are, it's not commercially as likeable anymore because you're doing this thing that it's just what you want, and it's not listening to what other people want, and that is kind of what, again, veering back to La La Land, if you're just going off of what you want, you aren't going to be commercially successful, right? You have to listen to the middleman who's telling you to do something else, because it allows you to then further your career, because they've obviously done something right, which is allowing themselves to become palatable. And yeah, that may be an argument that we have where you think that it's not okay to sell out, but without selling out, how do you allow yourself to become more palatable to an industry that...
Did Van Gogh sell out?
Who?
Exactly, Vincent Van Gogh.
Oh, yeah, but he wasn't appreciated in his lifetime. He died before he could be appreciated.
Exactly. That's what's going to happen to me. When I die, people will go, God, have you seen this guy's podcast? It's amazing. Especially in that La La Land one, when he had that girl on there who just misread the whole thing.
Well, anyway,
I do want success. It's something I want, but I'm not willing to compromise what I want to do just to get that success. And what he does, I would have probably done the same thing. You know, it's like when I nearly made a film before and I made a lot of compromises. They said, can you add this scene? Yeah, I'll write this. Can you add these characters? Yeah, okay. Even with Horrible Love, you know, I remember we were shooting the film and all of a sudden Mike's gone, great news, I've got Ewan McIntosh from The Office. He's going to be in here tomorrow to shoot a scene. And I was like, great. What scene? There is no scene for him. There's no character for him. Oh, can you write one? And I went, yeah, okay. I quickly wrote a scene about a caravan bloke knocking on the door, you know. But it was me compromising. But in a way, part of me thinks, was it me selling out? And I think, but, you know, we needed to get this person. He was more of a household name than anyone else who was in the film. You know, we needed him in the film and we had to compromise. So again, I can see where Seb's turmoil is coming from. I can see, you know, he's going, I would love to be able to say, no, I can do exactly what I need. But this film, like music, like everything, you need to compromise.
I don't want to keep going on this tangent necessarily.
Well, I'm going to cut it all out anyway. And I'm going to start you saying, I agree.
No. I kind of want to conclude by saying you cannot ultimately be successful, because by being successful does mean that you have to have the input of others most of the time.
Yeah, I agree.
My Horrible Love, for example, you can still argue, or you're still happy with how that film came out.
To a degree. But obviously, if I do it again, I rushed it. But I shot the film predominantly in 5 days, whereas I did have 7 days, and I kept going like, right, no, that's all we've got. I know, you know, we push it to the line. And
my point is, a lot of the time, a final product is more successful after the input of other people. And even if that's not what you wanted initially, you have to appreciate what other people have done to aid in creating a more successful outcome. I mean, for example, my own film that I made, that film, that was mostly my vision and my ideas, but I allowed you to help me with directing it, and I allowed...
Well, not really, you directed it.
I had your input, I had my teacher's input when they were telling me how to edit it and what to cut and what to add. Now, initially I was like, but that's not what I wanted. But afterwards, when I saw the film, by the end, I was like, this is a much better product. What I initially was going for was completely different. My point is, you have to appreciate what other people's inputs are to create your own successful outcome.
Yeah, no, I agree. This film got 8 out of 10 on IMDb.
Yeah.
I think it's quite high.
I think that's good.
Me personally, I'd put it a little bit lower. Not by much. I still sits in the 7s. But again, it's only because where I hold Whiplash at such a high esteem. I think I much prefer Whiplash over La La Land. You know, for me, it's a much more superior product. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with La La Land. I still think it's a great film, but I just think I held Whiplash so high. That's all. It's similar going back to Tarantino. I held Pulp Fiction such high esteem that when Jackie Brown came out, I was disappointed with Jackie Brown. I like Jackie Brown, but for me, it doesn't come close to the previous effort. And I could go on for loads of films and directors who've done the same thing. Critically, on Rotten Tomatoes, critics hold it at 91%, and the audience at 82%. Again, both very high.
Yeah.
And I get that. I can see that totally. I've also met a lot of people who watched it and went, "Oh, what a piece of shit! I didn't like that." Well, it's not for you, you know. That's all it is. I don't take it personally. The budget, 30 million. And in the box office, it made $509 million.
That's pretty good, yeah.
It's really good. Ridiculously impressive success. But, yeah, okay. This was originally, it was going to be Fright Night, but we thought we'd squeeze this in. So next episode should be Fright Night, parts 1 and 2, which you haven't seen, have you?
No, I have not.
So get watching so that you can appreciate the podcast when me and Ben talk about it.
Okay, yep.
Okay? All right, well, thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe and share.
Yep. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Yeah, bye. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.